I want to talk in this segment about the NFL draft because earlier today, Will Campbell made his intentions clear that he will enter the NFL draft. It did not include LSU's bowl game, whether or not he was going to play or wasn't going to play. My assumption is that he will not be playing, but he's not going to be playing on LSU's next football team. He will be a first-round selection, very likely, in the coming NFL draft. And Campbell is a story that you just don't see a lot. He showed up in the spring, and within 2 weeks was named the left tackle in the spring of his freshman year. Supposed to still be in high school. They named the left tackle. And he started every game, 38 in a row for LSU at left tackle before his sophomore season, was given the number 7 for most impactful player from the state of Louisiana. He was a 5-star when he came in. He's going to be a first-rounder when he comes out, and he was an excellent player for LSU for 3 seasons. I know that a lot of LSU fans are frustrated with LSU's inability to run the ball a lot this year. I can promise you Will Campbell is not the root of that problem. Will Campbell is a really good player, and he will be taken early in the NFL draft. A great Tiger, great leader, great quote in the interview room for us, and is a guy that will be missed, certainly, moving forward. But he's not the only guy that's got a decision to make. His, I think, was the easiest, but not the only guy. And there is a story up that I wrote at LouisianaSports.net where I looked at the top 5 guys that I think have a decision to make, and I made a projection on what I think they will do. Keep in mind, I don't pretend to have some sort of inside source here. I have not had any conversations with anybody, and I'm not going to make up like I do. That's not what I'm here for. If I hear something that's reasonable to report or talk about here, I'll let you know that I had a conversation there. That's more often going to happen on the baseball side of things than it does here. But this is just my guess based on situation and just, kind of taking all that in and projecting. The first guy, it's not a question at all, is Garrett Nussmeier. He is the most important in this group. He just posted the 3rd most prolific passing season in LSU history. 64% of his passes completed, over 3,700 yards, 26 touchdowns. Yes, 11 interceptions, a little bit costly, but he didn't throw a single interception in his last 3 games, and LSU really badly would like him back in the fold next year. Garrett Nussmeier is a good enough quarterback to compete for championships at LSU. And I say that with an understanding that there's development and growth that has to happen. There have been plenty of guys under center at LSU in the last 25 years who haven't even had the ceiling to get to that level. Nussmeier does. And I think it's reasonable to expect a guy with that kind of work ethic, that kind of understanding of the position, and a year starting under his belt to improve. I'm not saying it's got to look like Burrow in year 2 as a starter. It's got to look like Daniels in year 2 as a starter. But I think it could look very much like Mettenberger in year 2 as a starter. And I think he's going to come back. I just don't think he's going to be rushed to the NFL. When I was covering LSU day to day, there was an offensive lineman who was rushed to the NFL by his family, and it didn't work out. And that's never going to be the situation with Nussmeier. Obviously, his dad's gainfully employed. His dad understands how difficult that position is at that level. He's coached at the highest level at college and the highest level in the NFL. And I just don't think Garrett's going to be rushed out. Now, if he makes the decision, I've had enough, that's one thing, but I just don't think that's going to happen. I think Garrett Nussmeier will be back at LSU next year. That is my prediction on him. Number 2 is a name that we've heard a lot of rumors about over the last 2.5 weeks, and that is Emery Jones. He has started all but 2 games in his 3 seasons at LSU. He did not start the Florida State game, and then last year he missed the Army game with injury. But he's been at the right tackle the entirety of that run, and he's played very well. I think if Emery Jones went to the NFL draft this spring, he would be a day 2 pick. I think he would probably go in the middle of the 2nd round. That's my guess. I think there's a chance he can improve that. I think there's a chance he's a guard. I think there's a chance he could play left tackle for LSU next year. I think there are some real variables there with Emery Jones. And so, do you want to come back and move positions? Do you just want to continue to develop under Brad Davis? Do you want to go get that reasonably early draft pick and go play in the NFL? I think any of those make a lot of sense for Emery Jones. I think 2 months ago it was a foregone conclusion he would go. I think he's going to stay. I am going to project that Emery Jones returns to LSU to play. So that's Nussmeier and Jones, the top two guys on my list. I think those are top two guys for a reason. Quarterback, most important position. Offensive line, it looks like there's a ton of potential turnover there. I'd rather try to soften that blow a little bit. Number 3 on this list, super productive. Mason Taylor, tight end. He's actually the most productive tight end in the history of LSU. He was inserted in the starting lineup in game 2 of his freshman season, never left the lineup. He's caught 129 passes for 1,300 yards, both of those LSU tight end records. He's scored 6 touchdowns through the air. When you think of the great tight ends in LSU history, you will think of David LaFleur, whose son gets here next year. You will think of Richard Dixon, who works with us here on England 8.1 Game Day. And you'll think of Mason Taylor. And he's got the size, the route running ability, the hands. I think he's ready to play in the NFL right now. And he was actually asked that a couple months ago, and he said, yeah, I think I could do it. And certainly his dad knows a thing or two about playing on the edge of the line of scrimmage in that league. He's in the Hall of Fame. I don't think Mason Taylor will be rushed out of college either. It'll be a decision that's his as well. But I think that there's very little left for Mason Taylor to prove. So unless he just wants to come back and play, I think Mason Taylor is a day 2 draft pick, and I think he's going to enter the NFL draft. That's my guess on Mason Taylor. Harold Perkins. He was on a lot of first-round lists as of September, and that's really not the case anymore. He wasn't productive through a month, didn't have a sack, had a tackle and a half for loss. That's not necessarily all his fault, surely. But nobody's really figured out quite how to use Harold Perkins here at LSU through 2.5 seasons. Then he tears his ACL, and he doesn't have a chance to continue to develop. So what do you want to do? Do you want to just get in there and rely on your athleticism, some team to fall in love with you and try to find a spot? Do you want to come back to LSU and develop as a linebacker? Do you want to come back to LSU and play more on the line of scrimmage? Do you want to enter the transfer portal? There are plenty of things that they're there for Harold Perkins. I think that he has an opportunity to go from what feels like a second, third round pick right now into the top 20 picks. You've got to prove that you can use that athleticism to do great things on the field with the pass rushing ability and the coverage ability and the productivity and play a little bit better in the run game. But I think if he does that on tape in college, he's got a real chance to improve that draft stock. And I think that's what he's going to do. The question is it at LSU or is it in the transfer portal? Because he will command a large sum of money in the transfer portal. Somebody will turn that tape on from Arkansas 2 years ago, from Alabama 2 years ago. First drive against USC this year, he comes flying off the edge and gets a TFL. And they'll pay big for him. And LSU would have to as well to keep him around. I'm going to project right now he stays at LSU, but that's far from a sure thing. I'll take Harold Perkins back at LSU. And the last guy I've got on this list, number 5, is Chris Hilton. Now, Chris Hilton's been in college for 4 years, but he's got a redshirt year. Got hurt. He's dealt with injuries his entire time in Baton Rouge, and that's super frustrating. I get that. But he showed on Saturday what he can bring to an offense. That deep threat is real. Now, if he wants to go to the NFL draft and run at the combine and run the 4.28 or whatever that he might run, which is possible, he could get somebody to take him there in the 4th, 5th round, I'm sure, because that speed is legit. But there's no real productivity in college yet. And I'm not ready to rule out that he can do that because I saw in the fall that he looked great. And then you saw on Saturday what he could do. And he really unlocked a piece to the LSU offense that wasn't there all year long. And he's got to stay healthy. He's not proven he can do that. He had an injury his freshman season, missed the last 10 games of 2022, missed first 7 games of this year. Like, injuries have been a bad deal for him. But he's got a lot of ability. Now, you look at LSU's wide receiver room. C.J. Daniels is gone. Kyron Lacey's gone. And then you look at Aaron Anderson and Xavier Thomas figure to be back, and Kyle Parker should return from injury. But you don't have a lot of proven production there. Chris Hilton can help with that. I don't know if he's a number 1 wide receiver at this point, but he can help. I don't think he's going to go to the draft. I think a guy with those kind of physical tools, if you could put another year of production behind those tools and let NFL teams know that you can stay healthy and do it for a year, I think that things could turn around for him and that he could be an earlier draft pick next year. My gut tells me probably a portal candidate, Chris Hilton. I'd love to see him back because I really thought he was great in the fall. And I think that he's got, well, I say the fall, in August, which is not really the fall. I thought he was great in camp, and I think he's got a chance to be an impactful player. We'll see. Transfer portal will be available to Chris Hilton. We'll see if he decides to jump that direction. Those are my thoughts. I've got Garrett Nussmeier coming back to LSU. I've got Emery Jones coming back to LSU. I got Mason Taylor going to the NFL draft, Harold Perkins returning to LSU, and Chris Hilton in the transfer portal. But that could be 0 for 5 because, like I said, I don't know anything, just my 2 cents on it. Beck, you're listening to all that. What did you make of these guys and their decisions and how big that is for LSU?
Yeah, it's obviously really big, man. I feel like Garrett Nussmeier is if he looks back at Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels and see the path that they took in their first year starting and how they played, and he can see that I could follow the same path that they took. Now, of course, I don't know that you can compare the situations apples to apples because the weapons that both guys had 2 NFL receivers that all of them are playing at a really high level right now in the NFL. I'm not sure that Garrett Nussmeier is going to have that next year. Yeah. So that is something probably to weigh as well. Not to mention, I mean, obviously C.J. Daniels going to the transfer portal, not necessarily to say that he might come back. He could still come back, but it doesn't look as bright in terms of the weapons and also the offensive line, losing, Will Campbell. So he may say, looking at the situation, it's not great, so I'm just going to go take my chance in the draft. But if you lose Garrett Nussmeier, you're in a serious jam there because then you've got to probably go get a guy out of the transfer portal.
You got to do that anyway, but if you lose Nussmeier, you're in big trouble.
You're in big trouble. Yeah.
So it's I look again. I don't want y'all driving around and listening, or those that are tuning in on YouTube, to look at this and go, "Oh, he's talking to somebody like this is what's going to happen." Those could all be wrong, but I'm here to give an opinion, and that's my opinion on those situations, and most of it is rooted in situation, not rumor or internet speculation or all that kind of stuff. I just think it's situation. So we'll see, but it's a lot. We may not find out these answers for a little while because you don't have to declare for the draft for some time. Keep in mind that generally was very much a January discussion, and we're now talking about it in early December here, the third day of December. So the calendar's just accelerated a lot in terms of roster building inside college football. So,
hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.